Outside Nottingham Police headquarters.
There has been a shocking and tragic series of events which has led to the lives of 3 innocent people being taken and left another member of the public in a critical condition in hospital. My thoughts are with all the families affected by this horrific incident, and we are working extremely hard to try and understand exactly what has happened. I can tell you that a 31-year-old man has been arrested on suspicion of murder and remains in police custody. We are not looking for anyone else in connection with the attacks, and I can reassure the public that it is safe to visit the city centre. There may be some road restrictions in place as we continue to establish exactly what has happened. Police were called to Ilkeston Road just after 4 a.m. after a member of the public reported that 2 people aged 19 had been stabbed and were unresponsive. We had a further call to another incident in Milton Street, where the driver of a stolen van had attempted to run over 3 people. As a result, 1 man is in hospital in a critical condition, while 2 others are believed to have suffered minor injuries. The van was then stopped on Maple Street, where a man was tasered and detained by police officers on suspicion of murder. A man in his 50s was also found dead from knife injuries in Magdala Road by a member of the public. At the moment, we believe that the suspect has stolen this man's vehicle and driven it to Milton Street, where he is then driven at members of the public. We are still in the early stages of the investigation and need to determine exactly what the motives were behind this attack. We are keeping an open mind and are working closely with counter-terrorism policing to establish the facts, as we would normally do in this type of circumstances. The families of all the victims have been informed and are being supported by specially trained officers. Officers have also carried out a number of searches at addresses across the city to gather evidence, but no further arrests have been made. A team of dedicated detectives are investigating the circumstances surrounding the incident and will continue to gather evidence over the coming days. I want to thank those who live and work in our city for their patience and understanding in incredibly difficult circumstances. We will, of course, keep the public updated as soon as we are able to say anything further. This is a very sad day for our city, and we will do everything possible to get justice for the victims and their families. Thank you.
OK, all right. So what you just heard there was a very brief, it must be said, statement from Nottinghamshire County Police. I'm going to bring Mark White back in a second, who was seeing that live. Is our Home and Security Editor, Mark White. What the police were saying there was that they're keeping an open mind about the attack. They were called initially after 2 people were stabbed to death in the street. Then, what they just said there was that there was an individual in his 50s who died from knife wounds. As they understand it, that individual's van was then stolen by the man believed to be responsible for these attacks, who is a 31-year-old man who remains in custody, and then that van was used to career into a few other people before eventually an arrest was made. They wanted to emphasise that they are not looking for anyone else in connection with this attack, that no further arrests have been made, and that it is safe to visit the city centre again, which really kind of emphasises, doesn't it? I think that they believe clearly that they've got their man. Mark White does join me now, again, our Home and Security Editor. Mark, quite a short statement there.
Yes, but that new piece of information, key information that we hadn't had before, wondering, of course, whether this van was a van that was owned by the suspect. Now clear it wasn't. It was this man in his 50s who appears to have been the 3rd person to have been stabbed to death by this alleged attacker. And at that point, it's believed the suspect stole this victim's van, which he then used, of course, to carry out the attacks further into Nottingham city centre on Milton Street, where 3 persons 3 people were run over, one of those still in hospital with critical injuries. So that's a key piece of new information. What the Chief Constable didn't touch on, and perhaps not surprisingly, at this stage anyway, is the information that we have, that we can confirm that the suspect, the 31-year-old who was taken from that van, tasered and arrested, is a West African migrant with a history of violence. Now, beyond that, we don't know. We don't know if this is someone who was lawfully in the UK, whether it was someone who had overstayed his visa, whether he had entered illegally, where he was an asylum seeker. We don't know any of that. All we can confirm from our source, a source that I have great confidence in, is that this individual is a West African migrant with a history of violence. The Home Secretary is due to give a statement on camera soon. Whether she touches on this at this stage, I don't know, but she will definitely, of course, be asked about that in the hours and days ahead, because it is a very significant aspect of this story, given all of the questions that there will inevitably be about how someone with a history of violence was allowed into the UK in the first place.
That is the key piece of information which we appear to have exclusively here on GB News, thanks to Mark White, our Home and Security Editor, from an impeccable source, which is that the individual who's been held in police custody is believed to be a West African migrant with a history of violence, which would, I think, go a long way to explaining exactly why as well. Emmanuel Macron was very, very quick to do a tweet of support as well. It did make it, I think, appear like there was going to be something a bit more to come out about this, and indeed there has been. I'm going to reiterate a statement made just now by Nottinghamshire Police Chief Constable Kate Maynell, who said this: police were called to Ilkeston Road after 2 19-year-olds were found stabbed shortly after 4 a.m. They have now been confirmed as University of Nottingham students. A vigil is being held for them at St Peter's Church. She went on to say officers had a further call to Milton Street following reports a van had tried to run over 3 people. As a result, 1 man is in hospital in a critical condition while others were left with minor injuries. The van was then stopped on Maple Street, where a man was tasered by police and taken into custody. And this is also a new piece of information. A man in his 50s was also found dead from knife injuries at Magdala Road by a member of the public. At the moment, we believe the suspect has stolen this vehicle, then driven it at members of the public. So, Mark, the latest information emerging is of a stabbing, the theft of a van, the murder of another man, and then the attempted murder, it would appear, of other individuals as well. And the man responsible for this, as far as the police are aware, is that migrant who has got a history of violence. Those are the facts as we understand them, Mark.
Those, at least the facts with regard to this man's origin and the history of violence, are facts that we are confirming. The police have not confirmed those facts as yet. They will, of course, be under pressure now, because other members of the media will be contacting them with those very same questions, because clearly it raises a whole host of other very legitimate concerns that need to be answered, that will, I'm sure, be answered in the fullness of time. But they will now be under pressure to give some kind of confirmation on the background of this individual. And as you mentioned there, Patrick, I think we both thought it was perhaps a little odd that Emmanuel Macron was commenting on this, although having said that, you know, our Prime Minister and Foreign Secretary did offer their support and sympathies following the attack in Annecy in the French Alps last week, when a number of very young children were stabbed by a Syrian asylum seeker, and 2 adults as well. So it may be that he was privy to a bit more information. You would expect, as the head of state of our close neighbour across the English Channel there, that of course they're kept up to date and up to speed with events like this as well. So maybe that prompted that reciprocal message of support to the UK following the message of support from the UK to him last week.